Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Zero Sum podcast, our set of launch episodes. Today, I'm incredibly happy and fortunate to be joined by my good friend, Mark Carney, one of my idols in information security, a man who's been my boss multiple times. Love working with him, love talking to him. He is currently the CEO of Evolve Security and is also a virtuoso across investments and private equity and helping other startups and working with advisors. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Yeah, Aaron, it's thanks for having me. I'm excited about the conversation and appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks. So this podcast, we are trying to focus on more us as an industry. Like where's cybersecurity at? I consider you sort of one of the OG security guys that has been doing this almost since we invented the service industry around cyber. And I think we are at an inflection point. I think we are sort of figuring out, we've been trying to grow up for 25 years, but like really AI is sort of forcing the issue of like, are we relevant? Where are we going? So that's what I love to talk about. But I guess I'll start here is just, you've been doing this a long time. Where do you feel like we're at? Like if you sort of sit back and go like, where's cyber at? What are you thinking?
Well, I think there's a couple different views that you could take, right? I think you could say that we're at the most exciting, point of cyber because of AI. I mean, I enjoy probably working today more than I did, 5 years ago because all of my tasks that are easy and sort of mundane, I can have Claude Cowork do them for me, right? And
Sure.
so it's a really exciting. You can be so productive personally, and really kind of maximize, more sort of thoughts and on strategy and some bigger kind of bigger thinking, where a lot of times you find yourself in your time allocation. You're like fixing a spreadsheet or you're formatting a Word document or something like that. So to me personally, it's a very exciting time with AI and that at your fingertips. From an industry perspective, we're seeing a little bit of, I think, a repeat where we saw with cloud, right? Everybody
Mhm.
was a cloud vendor. Everybody was a cloud company, 12 years ago, and now everybody's an AI company. And so it's very, very noisy, certainly, and always has been very noisy in the cybersecurity industry. You and I were kind of talking offline around, venture capital to me is there's some incredible innovation that comes from it, but also there's some downside that comes from VC because they spin up tons of companies, which is great from an innovation and solutioning perspective. But at the same time, they spend loads of money on sales and marketing, and buyers, I think, have a hard time sort of shifting through all of this, marketing fodder and and buzzwords. I call it buzzword bingo for cyber, because everybody kind of looks the same. And even though there's distinct product categories and solution categories, and the gardeners try to do their best that they can do to try to decipher and define these categories, there's just a lot of noise. And so I think from a customer perspective and trying to get to cyber resiliency and really the true outcomes that we're trying to deliver on the services side for our customers, I think it gets really, really challenging in that perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the energy of AI funding and just general cyber funding right now is around product, but services makes the world go round, right? Like if you look at our industry, right, it's 70% human capital, 30% product, and everybody's knife fighting over the 30%. But like there's a lot going on with people, right? Fear, opportunity, a lot going on. And, you're in the people side a lot, right? So, when you think about going to a customer, going to hire or whatever, like how are you filtering that through the lens of this new AI world? Like it specifically around services.
Yeah, so you know, Momentum Cyber just released a report on the cybersecurity services market, just this month, or actually last month now, technically, and it was about that there's more exits in cybersecurity services than there ever has been, and so it's actually
Really?
at the height, which is pretty interesting. So call them software enabled or tech enabled services to me is very, very hot. I think the W two human-based, services space is certainly a dying breed,
Mhm.
and they're in a lot of trouble. But when you're in this mix of leveraging this disruptive technology called AI, or before it was something else, right? You're trying to automate the mundane. You're trying to level up where humans and human intelligence make the most sense to inject themselves in whatever a solution that you're trying to bring to the market. I think is a very exciting time for that particular sort of niche and business model. And then if you think about the product side, there's a lot of fear from, I think, private equity, at least, on kind of later stage mature companies because can AI replicate and disrupt and build the same platform? What's the moat anymore, right?
Mhm.
Lots of vibe coding going on out there, and really, is this, something that can be built in a couple of weeks, and sort of replicated. And so PEs are going to be wanting to do what they call an AI disruption due diligence assessment on that particular SaaS
Hmm.
platform before they invest millions of dollars. And so in the PE work that I'm doing, there's a company called Crema that's doing a lot of this work for large PE firms because they want to do this due diligence piece. It's brand new, it's super hot, it's very trendy, and it's very relevant because they've got they're staking a lot of their money into, they're writing big checks. They've got to have a return for their LPs, and that they want to make sure that's it's a smart investment, obviously. So there's certainly new things that are coming that we've never really seen before in relation to this kind of AI, aspect of both software, but then also kind of this surge of this tech-enabled space that is very attractive and seeing a lot of activity from an exit perspective.
At some level, though, those guys have gotta be full of shit. Like, a little bit, because, like, I can look at a SaaS company that's very successful that makes construction management software or something like that. I'm pretty AI savvy. I have no idea what's gonna happen, right? Like, are we like and I think applying AI to old school thought processes is a little lame anyway, right? Because like, it's so different, good and bad. But, like, I'm looking at this, to take it back to the cyber side away from the investment side, pen testing, right? Like applying AI to traditional pen test models, okay, but like, shouldn't we rethink it? Shouldn't we start from scratch and go like, what's the right way to do this? How do we assess these things? Like, should we be delivering back prompt management instead of PDFs? Like, I feel like we're sort of missing a beat on rethinking our industry. And obviously, I'm sure some dude who went to Harvard Business School is very good at spreadsheets, but like predicting agentic AI outputs in a SaaS environment is impossible. Like, who the hell knows? And so we're all going to be disrupted. So to think that you're not is crazy. I think the
Right.
question is more adaptability, right? Can that same group of people solve this new set of problems, right? Like, I look at some of the dinosaur companies in security. I'm like, they got no shot. But then
Right.
some of them will. Some of them will figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And
We'll
and and
pivot.
create new AI pathways
Yep.
and think
Yep.
about new products. So to me, it's like, are you in the firing line or are you not? Like, it more than like, is this business at risk? The answer, I'll save them a couple $100 million of due diligence. Yes,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
The answer is yes.
I mean,
Done.
is anybody safe? I don't think so, right? I think that it's the mode, it's the adaptability, it's the pivoting, and there's going to be so many changes. Like 6 months from now is going to be it looks very very different than today, right? So you've got this big, news with Mythos and other frontier models, and the Chinese developing, and they're a couple months behind, and they've got people have access to that, but we've kind of taken away access to our frontier models here in the states, which is that's
Apparently.
all that's all unfortunate, right? And we need to get back to having the right tools to protect our businesses and be able to have proactive security. I could talk for hours around kind of the AI implications of the pen testing space, right? We're seeing more interest because fundamentally, people have to decide what they want to do, right? So I was on a couple calls this week, just sort of a timely, use case, and they're like, "Well, why can't I just build this myself?"
Mhm.
And we said, Well, sure, you can. I
Mhm.
mean, these are sophisticated companies. You can throw about if you want to become a software company too, and also do your other, your other, revenue stream that makes you business, you certainly could do it. I could
Mhm.
become an astronaut. We did it, but everything else in my life would kind of go to shambles. So the,
Right.
the question is opportunity cost. Yes, you can. You can orchestrate the whole thing. You can have no humans in the loop. You know, I don't think we're ready for that yet,
Mhm.
but you could. You could go down that endeavor, see where that path leads you, and it might lead you to euphoria. Like this, place where everything's perfect. Agents are talking to agents. They make no mistake. There's no hallucination. They don't go
Mhm.
off and do crazy things when they're doing exploitation. We fundamentally think we're not ready for that today.
Mhm.
Or could we be sometime? Sure. We've been working with AI models for the last 6 months in our R&D labs, and we are using AI. I won't tell you how because that's a little bit of competitive intelligence,
Mhm.
but we are using it. Are we using it to do exploitation? We are not. I'll tell you that because we don't believe that it's ready. And we also think, and we're certainly staying very attuned to this, is uh, you know our customers are telling us when they buy an autonomous pen testing solution, which is great for some clients out there, right?
Mhm.
Not saying it's a bad thing, but they're seeing up to 50% false positives. I
It's
mean, that's
noisy.
not my words. That's our customers are
Yeah.
saying that. So it can be very good, but I think the fundamental thing that we've always had, it's been very cheap to find vulnerabilities, right? Qualys Tenable,
Yeah.
Rapid7, you can always find it. And now it's even commoditized even more. This is the new, what we call it's the new noisemaker, if you want it to be,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so what we're truly trying to find is how a what are the attack chains? What is the business logic? What are the importance of those assets from a revenue stream perspective and true cyber resilience and high impact exposures. That's what we want to try to bubble up because people in the past have been chasing CVEs. Well, CVE's dead now.
Yeah.
Anthropic, Jason and Clinton is saying, hey, listen, EPSS is kind of where you want to go. It's much more kind of intuitive as far as prioritization. So to me, prioritization has always been a problem. It's always been a resource constraint as far as patching. So how do you get smarter, quicker, and faster? That's what has, I think, shine a light on the industry that's already had a problem with vulnerability management in
Mhm.
the traditional sense. Now modernization and with Mythos, I think people are finally waking up to a problem we've always had for like the last 20 years.
So I've seen that, but I've also seen this sort of new era of like YOLO security. Like I'm writing 10,000 lines of code an hour. I'm just going to go. Right. Like almost fearless because everybody's so afraid of being left behind.
Yeah, yeah,
And, I've never seen a bigger gap between where customers are at and where our industry is at than today. Like my entire career, where, you know, you go to companies that are AI forward and nothing we're doing keeps up with that because they're going so violently fast. Or you get the opposite where it's like paralyzed, dinosaur companies that are like, we're still thinking about AI and we're
right.
showing up with like AI SOC tools and they're like, we're not ready. It's
Yeah,
very weird. And, it's funny you brought up build your own because I have heard this so much in the last few, well, we'll just
yeah.
build it.
We'll just
And I'm
build it.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
software is so hard.
It's
Like
so
it's
hard.
so
Yeah,
hard to do right. As you know,
exactly,
it's so hard to
exactly.
get right and
Yeah,
to take care of your customers. So
sure.
I think that's a funny argument from these companies. Like, well, we don't need security vendors anymore. We'll just build it. Okay, build your own EDR and then call me in a year. Tell me how it
Exactly.
went. Like
Well,
it's
yeah, I
so
think
hard.
there's this wild spectrum, right, of that we always see, right? You see the folks that are leaning forward, that are early adopters, that are going to go charge ahead and kind of be out on the forefront of what is this and what are the benefits,
Mhm.
and they see a lot of promise in it. And then you see a lot of kind of fear mongering, larger organizations or maybe more traditional companies and traditional industries, and they're sitting on their hands going, we're gonna watch from the sidelines. I mean, we've seen that Listen, history repeats itself over 25
Mhm.
years of you and I being in this industry. It's like being a historian, in
Mhm.
general. We've seen things repeat, and this is a little bit of the same thing, right? So you're going to have laggers and early adopters, and there's going to be a large spectrum of customers that are on kind of those different ends.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have, I think, literally been in meetings together where customers were like, "We're never going cloud. We're
Yeah,
regulated. We can never use cloud." And now,
exactly,
it's all cloud.
exactly.
I don't know how much AI is gonna mirror that as an outcome, right? Because, like, cloud fundamentally didn't change much, right? It lets us scale a little faster and do some things, and it's okay. I don't think it was nearly as revolutionary as we thought it was gonna be. It just kind of like I rent compute instead of buy compute. Like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, cool.
yeah.
And I understand there's different security, but like it didn't change the paradigm of threat actors or attacks, or it was just kind of like a different way to do it. AI is really changing things, and I think one of the things that's changing is how do we fit in, right, as people into this new world? And there's so many people going through turmoil and layoffs and chaos. And so, spinning that just for a second over to more your leadership side of things, like how are you responding to that? Like part of you as CEO has got to go like, can I run $1 billion company with 0 employees? Like that's the question. But the other side is like, I love these people. I take care of them. I'm responsible for them and their families. Like I think people are confused by what you guys are thinking as CEOs.
Yeah, I mean, I can just kind of speak personally.
Mhm.
In October of last year, so I basically charted an autonomous enterprise initiative, right? So essentially, the mandate was for sales, marketing, delivery, HR, all main functions of the business. We are going to explore use cases to how to use AI in each of
Mhm.
those cases, right? And to be more efficient, more effective, use that to an advantage in sales cycles, competitor differentiation, et cetera. And we've come a long way in the last really 9 months in that venture, and it's been pretty exciting. And by the way, we are hiring people.
Mm.
We're not letting people go. By the way, so we're growing as a company 100% year over year. We're taking on new enterprise customers. We've got a pipeline that's extremely exciting with named customers or named kind of brands. And so we're at this really exciting point of the organization at Evolve Security. We put a lot of work in the business the first 18 months I was here, and now we're kind of bearing that fruit. So, you know, from a I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to build superhuman pen testers. In fact, that is going to be our new marketing brand tagline. So great, thank you for the opportunity to
There you go.
to share that.
Awesome.
But really, we want to equip with the tooling and with the right time for them to inject. Pen testers don't like writing reports. They
Never
never
have.
have.
Yeah.
They never have. And it's of the pen testing workflow, it's maybe it's 30-40% of the time, right? Well, that's boring to them, right? So how do we help them to go do that? And we've been doing that in our platform for the last 7 years. We were very early on in the continuous pen testing space. We've had a platform around for a while, and so we've continued to dial and tune and mature it over 7 years, which is certainly a great opportunity. But even on the testing side, can it be your river guide, right, for a
Mhm.
silly phrase for the pen tester to say, hey, what are the most interesting opportunities when you've harnessed all your enumeration and discovery and vulnerability data all within sort of and throw that into an AI model and say, what do I do with this?
Mhm.
What are the things what are the attack chains, the emulations I can run that are not just like, oh, let me validate a medium finding
Right.
or a critical finding. Okay, great, well, you can do that. But I think it again adds more value to the intellectual side for their work, but also it adds tremendous value to the customers. And so it's really, to me, it's like a pro. And certainly there are industries and other things that we're seeing out in the market that people are being laid off. And I think
Mm.
software engineers certainly is one of those. We would like to, bring those software engineers on the AppSec side,
Sure.
to our business, right? And so there's a lot to obviously consider and to be sensitive to it. we are in a very, I think, fortunate position to where we are. We're not 1,000 people.
Right.
So I think the larger you are, the harder you have to make decisions as a CEO around efficiencies and everything else. We've already worked pretty nimbly, so we're kind of hiring instead of doing the opposite.
That's excellent. It's funny because you use the term guide, right, as a way to do the job. I've heard recently shepherd, I've heard architect, I've heard
Yeah.
advisor.
Yeah.
And one of the things that everybody's scared of in our industry is jobs, right? Like losing their jobs, not being able to find jobs. But in this new world of being a guide, right, it's a different skill set, right? Most technical doesn't necessarily win. If the bulk of the hardcore technical work can be done with AI, maybe it won't be, but like can be done with AI, then your value is in things like communication and
That's right.
efficiency and convincing people, almost marketing security, which we suck at. We've always sucked at, right? Like, and so, how do you teach that? I guess like if you're talking to the army of people out there who are looking for jobs or want to come work for you, how do you think about those soft skills now in this new world of AI?
Well, I think they've always been a differentiator. And again,
Hmm.
now that with the pressure and layoffs, et cetera, I think it starts to really amplify what skills that are differentiators, right? So we just hired we have a security operations center, right? So it's just a bullpen of pen testers, right? And we hired a few recently, and I do a CEO meet and greet for every new employee at Evolve. And so I'm on the phone with a new employee yesterday, and I was blown away. I wasn't part of the interview process. My team hired this
Hmm.
individual. Uh, Technical aptitude was there. That's kind of going to be table stakes for
Sure.
sure. And then creative thinking, creative design. He had a creative design background. So, like, just kind of sort of this, like, not scientific, technical, but like this sort of marketing, creative design sort of thought piece, which is, I think, very, very interesting. And he was incredibly articulate. I mean, maybe one of the best pen test communicators I've met,
Wow.
in my career. And I was blown away. I was like complimenting him, saying, "Hey, you've got this trifactor of valuable things that you're going to be bringing to our organization. We're super excited to have you on
Mhm.
board," right? And so, I think, to your point, communication, at least in my role, the CEO role, I think is probably the most important thing that I do. You've got
Yeah.
to amplify a vision. You got to repeat yourself and say, "This is our mission. This is our vision. These are our charters." And you say those things over and over, because if you say it once, it doesn't stick usually with people.
Mhm.
And to drive home a charter and a mission and a vision, being the CEO is incredibly important. And it doesn't happen one time. It happens every time we get together. We have CEO town halls where I have a more informal sort of engagement with the team, and we bring in other CEOs, and we try to grow as people, not just as employees. So that's a kind of a whole new sort of concept that I brought in my CEO role. But also, we've got our formal, all hands meetings, right? Or we get together, and so we're constantly, you know, uh, sharing the vision and mission, and what are the things that are trying to move the needle. We are a little bit soft. We do share metrics because metrics kind of drive things, but we try to make them a little bit more meaningful. We're about to kick off a Michael Jordan 23 metric around. We're going to go do, there's a metric behind the 23, and then we're going to try to do some recognition and awards and stuff like around, because we're based in Chicago. So I love Michael Jordan. And so, we're going to try to do some fun things around that. So those are all things I think that are really incredibly important in kind of driving the right uh, purpose in how people are spending every single day. We call them stacking days. So, like, we want to stack productive days over and over and over, and we feel like we're going to bear fruit
Mhm.
from the focus, the right focus, and the purposeful mission that we've got.
That's that's great, and it's interesting because I do more the go to market side of things, and one of my kind of core beliefs is like the communication is so more important than ever, but also changing, right? And one of the reasons I even wanted to do this is I think people have almost completely lost interest in reading things because it's just AI writing, AI summarizing, like it's just so noisy. And so I believe physicality is going to make a really big comeback. Even like talking to you in this format, I know I can see, hopefully it's not AI. I can see you talking about what you're excited about and your people. And that resonates with me. But if you wrote it, if you had Claude write it, I would just tune it out. I'd be like, oh, this is just another AI thing. So I think we're gonna have to think about the ways we communicate. It is funny because historically in pen testing, the super geniuses got away with murder, right? Like they could go into a room and not talk to customers and be angry and sort of because they were so smart, they got
Yeah.
treated with kid gloves.
Right.
That's kind of over, right? Like I can AI most of what you do. No, not everything, but like can you talk to a development team and teach them how to use AI more effectively? Can you write reports that include actionable things to make their AI systems better? Like this is the future of where we're going. So that's really cool that you're paying attention to people. I definitely am hearing other things from other CEOs, right? Like we're gonna be we're gonna make $1 million a month, and I don't need any salespeople. Like, okay,
Wow.
maybe you're
Wow.
right, but like I don't. I have yet to see AI solutions that solve that, and the ones that try are so awful. Like they're so impersonal and terrible. And chat with my AI bot to buy 100,000 enterprise software is a ways off to me, right?
Yeah, I think it's a nightmare experience. I think
It
there's
is.
still, I think specifically cybersecurity is a very high trust business, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think we're actually leaning into the humanistic piece of it. We feel like it's a differentiator. If other people are trying those things and trying to be more efficient and everything else, we don't use it. I mean, we use AI's tools, but for different things, not to call people and interact with folks, or if somebody calls Evolve Security or whatever, I think it's a terrible experience. I've been on the other side where, you call to, get your HVAC system updated or maintain, and they have an AI agent, and you talk to them, and you're just like, I just want to talk to a human being, and it
It's
says,
so
whoa,
awful.
it's
Yeah.
awful. It's a horrible experience, and
Yeah.
so and so anyway, we're not leveraging AI tools in that manner whatsoever. We feel like, in fact, we're leaning into more event, boutique events.
Yeah.
We were in Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago. We had 17 CISOs in a room. We were in Dallas, last week. We were in Austin as well with 50 people, right? So I feel like with the era of AI, I think people are they're going to be longing for more interaction, on the human side. The other thing I think that's a differentiator on the technical side that could be noteworthy is your network, right? So it's your thought leadership and also your network. So if you can creatively think and interact with whatever model you're interacting with, then you can think of very creative ideas and kind of start to riff on those, and then to come up with very interesting thought leadership pieces that are value added for the community and also value added for the awareness of your organization that you're working for or could work for, right? And so I think the network piece is huge, and also the thought leadership is certainly kind of could be a superpower basically within today's environment.
It's interesting because, there's things that are happening in other industries that aren't really making its way to cyber yet, right? So you can think about like the hyper personalization of sales in consumer, where you basically never see anything you don't want, right? Like it's all sort of geared towards you. You're in the, like my kids call it, in the algorithm. It's just like feeding you your stuff. And then you go to cyber. First of all, it's exceptionally lame. Like a lot of it's just lame, but like it's not very personalized. It's not very much about me. It's sort of this generalized, you know, um, I mean, if I hear one more person talk about how much money they raised, I'm going to throw up. Like I'm so sick of it, right? It's the most annoying messaging in the world. Who gives a shit, right? Like
No one cares. Yeah, the
no
customer
one
doesn't care.
cares.
No, the customer certainly doesn't care. Yeah.
Well, that's what matters, right? I mean, I'm sure the next VC you're going to raise from cares, but like in the sense of like projecting it to the world as important as you should care about this. It just turns me off as like, you're going to spend this money on what? Like, what problem are you going to solve? Why do I give a shit? Like, really focused on your customers. I can say, man, I'm sure like you have sat through quite a few pitches recently where not even sure they mentioned customers, or at least they did in the first half an hour. It was just, look at how cool I am. Look at the founder team I have. Look at how much money I raised. We're AI. I'm sure you're so sick of hearing about AI. And the investor side, it's like, it's a lot. But, and then at the end, they're like, oh yeah, customers, like they're gonna come to us because we're awesome. I'm like, is that how it works? Like the best product always wins? Is that why Oracle's still in business? Like, I'm like, this is a different world, right? So, all like as you think about the industry in general, like in your advisory work and other things that you do, um, I guess what are you optimistic about? What do you look at and you're like, oh God, that's a nightmare. I would love to sort of hear at a macro level what you see that you look at. You're like, I want to copy that, or a space you think is cool. Like where do you think about the overall ecosystem?
Yeah, yeah. I certainly want to understand what our competitors are doing.
Hmm.
But first and foremost, I want to understand what our customers are wanting,
Hmm.
right? So I spend a lot of time. I mean, think about Elon Musk. Whether you're a fan or or don't or not, he spends a lot of time with customers. I mean, at least that's what he says. And so it's like if you're on the ground floor talking with customers all the time, some of our greatest innovators in our space. They talked to 120 customers before they came out with a GA platform, or even like started even doing beta, getting design partners, right? They're talking 120 customers first, right? And so I think that like really understanding the customer voice, one of the first things I did when I got here was it takes a little while, but we've got 13 wonderful people that we have, had the pleasure of interacting with once a quarter on our customer advisory board, and they are existing customers, former CISOs. I mean, it's a lot of different industries. Like we want it to be very mixed. Some are customers, some are not, and so we want to always be thinking about what are the trends, what are they seeing, what are their challenges, and to try to really truly understand those at a root level. I think on the personal side too, or customer side, is we're fans first. And so if you know if this
Oh, sure.
Savannah Bananas, right?
Yeah.
Last summer we did one of our all hands was all about raving fans,
Hmm.
and we talked about Jesse Cole, the CEO of Savannah Banana. I mean, it is all about fan first experience. It's all about customer obsession. It's all about we're not going to charge ticketing fees, right? I mean, it's really really cool. And so, how can we become the Savannah Banana of the offensive security space? I
Very
mean,
good goal.
that was basically the charter, and that's what we spent like 3 or 4 hours talking about as a company, and every single aspect of the customer interaction has to be spot on, phenomenal, and a wonderful experience. And if they have to rotate vendors because that's a audit committee scenario, they're going to come back,
Hmm.
right? Like, and same thing with our customer or our employee experience. Every customer experience is not going to be 100%, home run, but I think you've probably heard me say is the time they spend at the company that at least whether it's the division or now as a CEO, I want them to have a phenomenal experience.
Hmm.
They may not be a lifer at whatever in that particular phase and season of their career, but I want them to take away and grow as an individual and grow as a professional within the walls of Evolve Security. And so that's kind of the mentality we have both on the customers and employee side.
Yeah, I would not to kiss your ass too much, but like as somebody who's worked for you 3 times in my career,
Yeah, yeah,
um, the and I'm not including myself in this group, but you've spawned out of the teams you've managed a ton of rock stars in cybersecurity and entrepreneurs and CISOs and like really legitimate change makers in our industry. And I don't think you get enough credit for it. So credit to you for that. But like, I know for a fact that that's changed our industry. Like and like, you know, at a macro level, like sure, there's a million jobs in security and only 300 of those people work for you. But like, I know if you think about some of the people that we share that are from early fishnet days or from Coalfire or wherever, like these are people who really took on a lot and were very successful. So that's very cool to see. And, I do believe in that at a deep level. I do think that's really getting lost in our industry, like really lost.
yeah,
Where,
totally. Yeah,
commoditizing people and treating people like marks to be taken down is so toxic to, I think, what we believe in. So that's part of the reason I'm doing this is like, I'm not one of these like good old days guys, because like security in 2004 wasn't ideal either. But like,
yeah,
I do
right.
feel like we're wandering a bit away from like, how do we create teams that reflect us going forward. How do we create, like talking about Savannah Bananas, that guy is the fucking force of nature. I love listening to him. I have
Me
no
too.
interest in his product. Like, no, I'm never
Yeah.
going to go to a Savannah's Beta game ever.
Yeah.
But the way he talks about what matters
That's
is
right.
to me the future. Like it has to be, because otherwise it's just noise. Like sitting behind a desk and AI slopping all day isn't going to get you anywhere in this world. Like, and the young generation has no patience for it.
Yeah.
Like you talk to like a 22-year-old, and which eventually are going to run the economy, right? At some point, they have
Yeah.
zero tolerance for like fakeness, inauthenticity. Like they just don't like it. And so, like, if those are the buyers in 10 years, you better get ready, because they don't have any tolerance for like big four style bullshit. It's like they want like legitimate, they almost want friends, right? Like people they really, really hyper trust. So it's interesting to think about physicality and that sort of stuff. But like in your communications, I guess how do you draw the edges of like, oh, that's too much AI? Like dial it back. Like it's one of the things I think people struggle with. It's like it's so powerful that it's like you'll just see 300 LinkedIn posts that all sound the same from the same company. Like maybe that wasn't the right approach. So how do you think about that? Of like where are your boundaries?
Yeah. To us, it's not about, I mean, efficiency is certainly the gain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But volume is not the goal for
Right.
us, right? It's more about, can we provide, in a maybe more speedy fashion, right, with somebody that you can brainstorm with you around a thought leadership piece or things that are interesting in the industry, and then pump out something that is meaningful for the industry. So it's got to have meaning and purpose. It's not just a volume play on the marketing side. I think that, well, I heard this a few months ago, and I think it's actually got some truth to it. But like the new currency is awareness, right,
Mm.
or attention,
Attention. Yeah.
right, and everybody is just because it's such a crowded and noisy, and you've got social media and all sorts of stuff. But I do think it's like this race for attention. And if you don't have attention, then your brand sort of gets subdued with all these other ones, which is part of the kind of the VC, sort of downfall, if you will, right? Or the negative, the VC piece. You get the innovation, but you get the noise with it. But I think that from an AI perspective, how much is too much? I think that we just have we kind of go with our gut. We kind of know where, okay, we're relying on AI too much in delivery or too much in marketing or too much in sales, right? And so I think, I don't know if there's a parameter or a line or a foundation or whatever that we've built on, like this is too much. But I think what we're trying to use is our instinct, right? To say, hey, maybe we've gone too far
Mm-hmm.
with a particular use case or whatever. Or we're just trying to maybe refine the common use cases that we've defined. And we're not trying to do everything with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much that you can do with it because it's got so much power. But we, with this autonomous enterprise initiative, with marketing, we said, hey, how much of the workflow can we operationalize and automate, right? From brainstorming all the way to, public relation, communication or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we've probably automated 65-70% of the process, right? But that doesn't mean we're producing more things from a volume perspective just because we can produce more things. So I think it's you got the efficiency of the process, but then sort of like, what is your responsibility as a company to not overdrain either the development team with ideas that, because you can produce so much more,
Yep.
now you've got 10x more expectations to you have in your backlog and story points and everything else on the development side, but also on what you produce into the market from a thought leadership perspective. So I think that we are just trying to gauge and prioritize each of those functions and make sure that we stay within the kind of the most purposeful use cases that we've kind of defined up front, not kind of get outside of too much and get crazy with it.
Yeah, it's funny because outside of cyber, uh, sort of people are referring and go to market referring to that as taste, right? Like is it tasteful? Which is funny because it's like it's all crass, it's marketing, but like there is a lever here, and I do feel like in cyber we've sometimes steered into distasteful, right? And there's so many, you know, like it's ruined outbound, right? Like outbound's a mess. We annoy the shit out of everybody. Customers hate it. I get like text on my, like I unfortunately it appears in my career of CISO in my title, even though I'm not a CISO. I like in the traditional out of budget, but like just I mean, people have texted like my family, like, "Hey, can you get Aaron on the phone?" Like, I mean,
Wow.
really aggressive psycho
Yeah.
stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like, which obviously is beyond tasteful, but like there is such a thing as too much. Like, and I do think we're struggling with that. And the stuff you don't see, right? So like, LinkedIn posts and everybody sees, but like the subcategory of that, which is like how your account reps act, how your SDRs act, your email blasting, like all those things are part of taste. But I feel like people think because it's not seen as much, they can get away with more. And so you'll sort of see an overwhelming amount of phone calls. And it's like, they have all these, I don't know if you've seen AI dialers yet, but it's a
Oh
nightmare.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Sure. I mean, we have we use a wide variety of angles, right, and mechanisms to reach customers. But the ones that we're finding that are the most productive and valuable are really through trusted referrals and partnerships, right? It's a human to human. So if I'm I was a what I call a non-traditional CISO for a little bit in my career,
mhm.
but and you wake up every day and you're like, okay, well, is something bad going to happen? And so you certainly understand the mindset of a CISO, but they don't have time. Like I don't think that sales teams truly understand the CISO role and what they have
Yeah.
on their plate. And if they did, either they are completely disrespectful of the role,
Right.
or they would find another way, right?
Mhm.
And it's one of the two. And what I think is, what I hope it is they're just ignorant, because if they truly know what a CISO has on their plate, then most solutions don't even need to be spoken to the CISO. They don't make the decisions. They set
Yeah.
the strategy, right? So they're setting the strategy, the vision, just like a CEO would be. They're kind of the CEO of the
Mhm.
security program, right, of their enterprise. And their principals and lieutenants and everybody else are the ones that are making those decisions and evaluating software. Now, or solutions. Does the CISO need to know a little bit, or at least understand that you're in the evaluation process? Hey, yeah, maybe.
Sure.
Do they need a demo? Do they need to be, reached out on LinkedIn and an email and like 14 different ways, right? A text, a phone call, a LinkedIn. No, you really don't.
Mhm.
And so if you just politely said, hey, we're in a current conversation with some of the folks on your team. We're excited about the opportunity to work with you. Whenever the right time is for us to meet, it'd be great. If not, we're excited to work with you. And that's all you need. Like
Yeah.
that. That's all you really need. Leave them alone. Leave them alone.
Yeah. It's like,
You just have like. And so anyway, yeah, that is I understand why companies do it. But at the same time, it's unfortunate for the CISO role in our industry, because they just get bombarded.
yeah. It's funny because I just did a recording with a guy named Jason Loomis. I don't know if you know him. He's a pretty well known CISO. Very, very funny, outspoken guy.
Yeah,
And he was all over this. He's like, leave me alone. Like to your point, it's like,
exactly.
and to your also point about fandom, if a good CISO, like, and I'll use like the ones who don't want to make every decision, like good ones who listen to their team,
Yeah,
like if somebody in their team comes to them and is like, I'm a huge fan of this and I need it. I don't know that I've never seen that not get done. Like maybe a few
right.
times, budget, whatever, but like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good CISO would be like, I have a little money over here. I'll beat up this vendor and give it to you so you can live your
right.
best life, right? As a tech engineer or IR person, whatever your role is, right? And I just feel like the entire industry misses that. Like it's just like CISO dinners. Like how many steak dinners does CISO needs to have? Like at some point you're full of steak, right? And so like I do think there's more creative ways to approach it. And um, Jason was like, take my guys out to dinner for once. Like it was like that. It was like, I don't want your steak. Like give it to them. So I do think we could do a bit of change, but like I think what happens though is you get to that layer and authenticity will really screw you. Like if you aren't authentic to those guys, like real doers, they will burn you to the ground. They will they will leave you for dead, and in fact, probably screw your relationship up with your CISOs. So yeah, I do think that's interesting. So one of the ways to do that, right, is to give those guys tremendous value. Like just show them, make their lives better. Kind of you're talking about super powered pen testing. Um, if they're the customer of that or consumer of that, like theoretically, that means that they're coming to get saved by this superhero and it's making their life better. So that's not something you hear a lot in the regular vendor world. It's like I'm cool, I'm here to save you, but like not really. Like I just want your money. So I think that's an interesting dynamic. So just in the flip that a little bit, because one of the things that I talk a lot and hear a lot about in this world of both buyers and sellers, it's like, how do I get in? Like, how do I get on the ride? Like, is it closed? Should I not do cyber? And I know your company has a history of doing, um, kind of education. I don't know how much of that you guys still
Academy.
do.
Yeah. Our academy.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you had Academy, I think, at one point here in Chicago that I actually went and taught at one point years ago. Um, how are you thinking about that? Like the new generation, like obviously you've hired a lot of people in your career, but like, you probably aren't hiring tons of junior people at a smaller company, but how are you thinking about that? Like if somebody asks you for advice.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think
It's
there's a
hard.
silver bullet. Yeah. It's hard. It's not. There's not a silver bullet, right? But I think that I think you've got to be thoughtful and really strategic about kind of your entry point, right?
Mhm.
And really maybe any entry point. Maybe that's not even your desired entry point. So
Just
I
get
think
in.
you gotta be flex, right?
Mhm.
To get in. So if you're a new college grad, for example, and or somebody that's gone through, a Evolved Security Academy or some academy, right, to get a certain amount of skills, certainly those skills, whatever you were trained on, is going to be a nice path, and you've got a body of knowledge, and you've got some technical knowledge as well. I think at the end of the day, who I mean, what is table stakes. Like there's a lot of
Mm.
people that will know a certain amount of folks, right? And so I had a one of my best friends, he graduated college. It's a 4.0, phenomenal, right?
Mhm.
Phenomenal on the knowledge side. And I said, well, where are you going to work? He goes, I haven't thought about that. You haven't thought about that? Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? Like for 4 years, he did no networking.
Yeah.
No. Love this guy. He's like a lifelong friend of mine. I'm like, well, what were you doing? Like, what were you doing for 4 years? Well, I was studying. I was making my A's. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, great. Well, it's only one piece of it, right?
Right.
And so I think you've got to really say, can I go to ISACA events or ISC squared events or ISSA events or, a community like a con that's local. I mean, take all the advantage that you can to get to know people. Like my first internship, it wasn't because I sent in a resume to get the internship. It was because I knew somebody, they
Right.
referred me, and I got it.
Mhm.
It just,
The way it works.
and then, my first job at Arthur Anderson, I literally like hunted down the Arthur Anderson guy on our campus and said, "Hey, I know you're interviewing for tax and audit accountants,
Mm.
but would you interview for technology, right? Because
Right.
I was an MIS MBA student, or whatever." And so I think you got to be very progressive if you can in building a network and building relationships because you just never know. You
Mhm.
never know. Like I was a friend of a CISO for over 15 years. He never bought anything from me.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
But I was a friend. I was a friend to him. He was a friend to me. We would go get coffee. And now, he does business with
Mhm.
me. So you never know. I think to me it's not about getting, it's about giving.
Mhm.
The more you give and the more you add value, and sure, early in your career, it's harder to add value, but certainly there's ways to go do that, or ways to go connect with people that are certainly very connected. And the folks that are accomplished, they love spending time.
Mhm.
Like there's probably not enough people that ask you and I, hey, I need some help. I need to, can you introduce me here? What should I know about this? So I think it's being very proactive in getting mentors, being proactive around your network, but also in that try to give a little bit versus just, hey, I want something to, because because I'm a Gen Z or something like that. I don't know,
Right.
and so it's like, to me, it's like, before you ask for something, you should first think about, what am I adding value to this relationship? And then they might be more apt to actually think that you're just not somebody that's going to take everything, and not have a mutual relationship that's beneficial, right? Or fruitful for both people.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's funny to watch, like, to that end of, like, the part you can give. Like, the advantage that they have is youth. And one of the things that I noticed is, like, in specifically in marketing, but just in go to market, there was a generation of people who grew up sort of what I call like native social. Like they grew up in it. Like you and I had to learn it. Remember back in the day, we would
Yeah.
joke about like LinkedIn connections, like oh, I had it. Like it was like a big deal, and like,
Yeah.
but we were
Right.
learning it. Like it was like a
Yeah.
new adventure, right? And then you met the kids that came up after it. It was just native. It was like Twitter, Facebook, like they never knew a world without that. And now we have a generation come up, so it's never going to know a world without AI. And we need them in our industry because like the boomers and us Gen Xers, like we're trying, but like we're not native. We didn't grow up with it. Like my kids and your kids, like they're not supposed to, but they're writing papers with it. They're like I was talking like my daughter with Spotify DJ. Like it's all custom. Like they play songs that you're interested in, and like we used to have to listen to like DJs to hear the latest stuff. And now there's some AI thing that's like personal. You know, there's pitfalls to that where you stay in your bubble and you don't learn about the other thing. But
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, it's pretty awesome to go, hey, Spotify, play me music you think I'm gonna like, and it does. We had to learn that they're gonna know that. So like to your point about guides or Sherpas or whatever, like I want 25-year-olds who are like incredibly AI native in security. Like we need them because the old hats are going to fail at this. Like, as far as taking, like you need a new paradigm, you need new eyeballs on problem sets, right? And you go like, oh, like look at this thing, and I don't see. You know, I put up a job post like a while ago. I got 1,000 applicants in 24 hours, and I was going through profiles. A third of them had no presence, like no picture, had never responded to a post, immediately gone. Like, I have no interest in hiring. I don't care if you're the greatest engineer on the planet. Like,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
like add a photo, right? And then a bunch of them, yeah, and then some of them put out content. Some of it's kind of bad, but like they're trying to show value to the world. Like those are the people I interviewed immediately. I was like, "Oh, you contributed to open source project or you commented about something that I cared about and like you are active in this planet." Like to your point about networking, like we think about networking as like I'm at a fancy cocktail party and I shook that CISO's hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
youngins view it as like I've had this incredibly intimate relationship with this streamer and I've never met, but we chat all the time. Like there's no reason not to stream. There's no reason to not make videos. There's no reason to not do a podcast. There's like nothing stopping you. This is pretty cheap. And I just don't see it. But then I hear all the people that are like, I can't find a job or I can't get into the industry. I'm like, was your effort hitting apply 12 times on LinkedIn? Because like
Right.
that's not
Right.
going to work. Like you and 5,000 other people did that. So yeah, I think that's great advice to think about network and think about it in terms of the advantages of youth, which is that you know all these things and you grew up in it and you're
Exactly.
better at it than we are.
Yeah, well, and I think you think outside the box too.
Hmm.
Like I think there's a certain expectation where, okay, my internship is paid, and rightly so, it should be.
Hmm.
You know what? Why not just be aggressive and say, listen, I'll just come and work for 3 months for free.
Yeah.
They're not working right now.
What difference does it make?
They're
Yeah,
not
you're
making
going to
any
mooch off
income.
your parents either way, right?
Right. And then
Yeah.
just think about, they would be 20 times more valuable if they have an internship for 3 months,
Hmm.
not paid.
Yeah.
And then it would literally spike their ability to go get their first real time job. Versus if you don't have an internship and you keep clicking on the apply button, good luck. Like, if you don't know somebody in that organization, your resume is standing out. So we had, these pen testers that we just hired, 800 applicants for two roles,
Yeah.
800 applicants.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Crazy.
Hmm.
And so like, there is no way. And we ended up hiring from our academy. So, you hire folks that you're highly confident that have gone through the material or whatever, right? And I think one was our academy and one was not. But it's like, like trying to stand out in front of 800 people. Wow. I mean, like I can't even imagine. So folks have to like really think outside the box today. They really do.
Yeah, like I've had people approach me with the like, "Can I intern? Can you do something for me?" kind of thing. Very rarely do they bring ideas or values. Like you talk about interning. Managing an intern program is a nightmare. Like, that's why there's so few. They're really, really hard to do. But if
Yep.
somebody came up to you who graduated from DePaul and maybe couldn't afford Evolve or did it or whatever, and it's like, "Hey, man, I wanna learn. I'm gonna spend you hire me for 3 months. I'll, work for free, and I'm going to build you the single best AI model for a competitive landscape and pen testing you've ever seen. Like, that's what I'm gonna do for you. And you're gonna I'm gonna build a project, I'm gonna interview people, I'm gonna do all this work, and you're gonna have this amazing AI agent that I'm gonna build for you in those 3 months." You'd be pretty hard pressed to say no to that. Like, that would be an interesting pitch, right? Like, give me a pitch. Like, don't just say, "I want to intern," because that it means work for me. Like, I've had a lot of people ask me, like, "Oh, can I just even for free?" And it's like, man, like that's going to be 10 hours a week of my time managing your workload. Like, have an idea, like, or whatever, right? Like, provide some value back.
Exactly. I mean, what is distinct about that is they're delivering a specific outcome.
Right.
Even as employees, right? Like employees should be thinking, what outcomes am I driving for this particular business I'm working for?
Hmm.
Because activity has no value. If you
Right.
can't tie your activity to an outcome, it's hard to tie value to what that employee is doing. And today, even more so, it's probably being scrutinized, right, with AI and efficiencies and labor market or whatever. But like you need to be driving specific outcomes that align to the company charter. And if you don't know that as a pen tester or a marketing
Yeah.
person or a sales individual, if you don't know what those are, you should know them
Yeah.
because it will drive your time that you spend, the activity that will then drive what the outcomes that are most important to the organization you're working with. And
Mhm.
that to me is like very valuable today to really be to keenly understand that in your particular role and circle of influence that you have
Mhm.
outside of your defined role to add even more value. I mean, think about once you do land a job, a lot of people sort of box themselves in as far as their influence. Well, I'm doing this job and I master my craft here, and I kind
Mhm.
of have my heads down doing this. And the CEO meet and greet, I always say, master your craft first. Yes, do that, but understand how this company works. We're an orchestra or we're a football team or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And you play a particular role, but you have a responsibility to understand all the other roles within the organization so you know how they all work together, right? We're all working together. We're basically a football team or a basketball team or whatever. We are a team trying to drive an outcome, as
Mhm.
simply as that, right? And so
Yeah.
you need to understand, yes, you need to master your craft, but you need to have awareness and understanding and and also build relationships
Mhm.
outside of your fiefdom when it'll become more enjoyable too. It'll become more enjoyable to work and to have relationships within the company you're in as well. I think it'll be more fruitful for that individual.
We all have customers, right? Like, who's your customer? Like, beyond like internally, right? Like, I talk a lot with like detection engineers. I'm like, you have customers, you have people in the SOC, you have your CISO, you have other DEs that are replicating your work. Like, they spend no time thinking about that. It's
Yeah.
all heads down. I'm a badass at this, and it's like maybe you are, but like if your customers don't notice, you're yelling into the void. It's all marketing, right? It's all promotion. That's great advice. I know I want to be respectful of your time, and I know we're at time. So obviously, people can find you on LinkedIn. Throw you a follow or a connect. Don't pitch slap him and connect with him and blast him with a bunch of content. But every intern in America should follow Mark Carney and see what he has to say. But is there anything else that you want to mention? I know
Well,
it's
I
behind
just
you.
think, first of all, I think that this industry needs a more just raw conversation about where we are And so I appreciate the initiative here, right, of the podcast and
Thank
what you're doing. I think it's going to be awesome. I think podcasts, the reasons why I spend time on podcasts is I think they are probably the most consumable, media,
you.
right? Versus, like you said, a white paper. Those are old. Nobody,
Right.
nobody reads them. And LinkedIn is okay. It's starting to become the corporate Facebook sometimes too. So it's
Yeah,
a
a
little
little
bit,
bit.
it's starting to get a little strange. But I do think that there's a lot of knowledge that you can gain scrolling through LinkedIn too. But no, I just appreciate the agenda. Appreciate the opportunity to chat today, and certainly check out Evolve Security and
Yeah.
evolvesecurity.com. And if you got questions or if you're interested, reach out.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. It's so great to talk to you, man. All right.
Appreciate it, man. Take care, man.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.